Hello everyone. This is a little companion video for the first round of playtesting in Station Break. The purpose of this video is to add a little bit of extra context that is missing from the tutorials, and also to talk a little bit about some of the things that are noticeably falling over and how you can maybe work around that a little bit. I am unfortunately a little bit under the weather this weekend in what is very unideal timing, so I apologize if my voice is coming through a little bit hard to hear. Without further ado, let's jump in. I hope it is clear that there are two versions of this test. There is the tutorialized version under Start, and then the sandbox version under Sandbox. They're both the same map with the same mechanics. Sandbox just doesn't have the tutorial and also has a few sort of developer flags set, which allows you to free build and that sort of thing. But I'll talk about that towards the end of this video. Let's jump into Start. Well, I don't want to just repeat the same information as the tutorial, so for the most part I'll just skip through these. I will add some extra comments where necessary. The first comment that I'll add is I haven't included in the control instructions the fact that when you have something selected, you can either double click on that selection or press F on your keyboard, F for fire truck, and that will frame the thing that you've selected. So we're choosing a metal planet, hitting deploy, and we're going to be now setting our orbit. This is where a couple of people have noticed an issue. What I will say about this is that if you just leave this orbit on the default really low orbit close to the planet, then you will encounter some camera issues. To avoid, basically what's happening is that the camera is being blocked by the planet in certain angles. To avoid that, I do suggest that you just click and drag this orbit out a little bit to about between 1 and 2 R. R at this stage stands for Earth radius, so that's the kind of unit of measurement that we're running with for the moment. Very subject to change, but when you see R, that's kind of what it means. So I'll drag this out to that and hit confirm, and now we've got this interface thing. I'll let you follow that by yourself. Just following, clicking through. Hopefully this is all straightforward. Go to build, hit build. We zoom into the station. You're instructed to build a solar panel. I will build a solar panel and then go to the energy tab and choose solar panel. When I try to build that, I can't. Oh no, there's no feedback about why I can't, but there is this message over here that there's not enough materials. So when you click here, you get this recipe thing. I do have a video out there talking a little bit more about this recipe system. The core idea of it is that there's 12 different materials in the game, and this system only has access to 3 of them. And so part of the strategy of the game is going to be figuring out which recipes you're going to use and which planets you're going to sort of prioritize as you go through. For now, I have these 2 options. It doesn't really matter which one I choose, so I will choose that one, place the solar panel, and hopefully we start getting energy. Amazing, we do. We get a message about it, and I can dismiss. So this is our energy panel, and I think there's one more message that will come up. Great. At this point, hopefully, up until this moment of the tutorial, everything is relatively straightforward. But after this moment is where things start falling over. So I'll talk about the ship assignments now, which is what most people are reporting issues with. Very rightly so. The next step in the tutorial is go to the system map, and once we're there, we'll get a little note about sending ships on assignments. To add some context to what's going on here, the ship assignments system was one of the first things in the early prototype of the game, back when it was a bit of a different game, and there was intention for part of the core loop to be setting up these like multi-stage assignments where you have several different planets and you had to strategize about which ones to go to in what order. The game has taken a little bit of a deviation from that, and that isn't as important anymore. And so what you're seeing in this prototype is the legacy of that system, where if you click assignments, there's this option to add multiple stages, and then there's this really clunky control system where you have to click on a stage and then click on a planet and then click on a stage and click on another planet and then click on a stage, etc., etc. The key takeaway here is don't worry about how this is working right now. This is definitely going to change for the next iteration. So thank you for your patience during this clunky thing. Thank you for reporting. It's all super useful. But this assignment system is known to be quite bad. So yes, it's not just you. It's definitely the system itself, and it needs to go through a redesign. With that in mind, talking about how it works right now, the intention is for you to click on a ship, open the assignments panel, and one bug that I've noticed is that if you click this button multiple times, you'll get multiple windows that pop up. So just sort of be aware of that. You might have to close this several times. So I'll hit assignment, choose one of these ships to send on an assignment, add a stage, and then with that stage selected, choose the destination that you want to send it to. That's kind of all you need to do at this point, and then you hit confirm, and that ship will go. One thing to note is that the ships all have different battery and energy configurations right now, just to give a sense of the difference in all of that. And so the ship with the broken battery has very low energy, which means that it's going to be very slow. So if I go here and hit assignment and send it to, let's say, this distant planet, that's going to take about 2 hours to get back, 2 hours in game time. Whereas if I choose the ship that has a high energy store, it's going to have a higher delta V based on the energy that it has. And so if I send that ship to the same planet, that's going to come back in about 40 minutes. That is obviously not very well surfaced right now. The fact that different ships have different stats, and those stats mean different travel times. But that is ultimately what's going to be the important choices that you're making during this assignment phase. In short, your ships are going to have different velocity capabilities, so they'll be returning in shorter or longer times, and also different hold configurations. So some ships might be able to carry more, and so you'll be making choices about which ships you send out, because one might be faster, but it also might have better defenses, so you don't want to leave it behind. I mean, you don't want to get rid of it to defend your station. Okay, so here we are at the end of this long and rambly section. I will send the Union arc out, and it'll come back in about 2 hours, which is probably, this game might end before that. I'll hit confirm, and then I've got this one, which is the faster ship, and I'm going to send that to the planet with the algae on it. This is red, but don't worry, it doesn't mean we can't use it. Again, legacy system. This will come back in 20 minutes, which is awesome, because I have a swarm coming in 6 minutes and a swarm coming in 20 minutes. So this ship should get back just before that next swarm. And I'll hit confirm. Great, so now these two ships are on assignment, and this ship is not on assignment. One thing I will say is if you're seeing stuff here that is unexpected, so you have a ship that's supposed to be on assignment but isn't, one thing you could try is close the assignment panel, and you might have to close it a couple of times and then reopen it. If that doesn't work, then it's possible that there's just something has gone wrong, and that ship is lost for the duration of this mission, which is fine. Because the second thing that I want to mention in terms of this is if you are at a point where the assignment has now blocked you and your ships are eaten, they can't work, or they're stuck somewhere, and you can't get any more materials, then one thing you want to keep going on your run, what you could do is go to the top right-hand menu, close the control section, go to this debug tab, and turn on free build. And what that's going to allow you to do is continue your run without the restriction of materials. So now you can go to your station and build whatever you want. I can afford all of these things. I don't have any restrictions in terms of what I can build. So I should be able to just place that even though I didn't have the right materials for it. Hopefully that makes sense. The summary is that if your ships, some people were reporting that the ships were completely broken and were not being able to be selected or sent on assignments or return with materials. So if that's the case, go to the debug menu and turn on free build. That'll allow you to just continue building without restrictions. At this point, one thing I should say is that a hidden decision that I've made, which I realize isn't actually communicated in the tutorial until later, is that I have kept one ship around because right now my station doesn't have any defenses. So I can't do, well, it does because I added a missile, but if you were just following the steps of the tutorial, your station wouldn't have any defenses. And so I've kept this ship around to help defend the station when this swarm wave arrives in about 2 minutes. So I'll just zoom ahead until that hits. We've got a swarm. I will let my ship take care of that. So at this stage, the ship defenses are very much a cheap and cheerful and not super effective against large waves, but for the earlier waves of the game should be excellent. That ship handled that wave with no trouble, and now I have 10 minutes before the next wave. So I still probably wouldn't send this ship out because it'll be too far away for... Yeah, no, there's no way it would get back in time. This fleet panel was another piece of legacy. It was supposed to automatically pop up when you opened the assignment panel, but it didn't. And so, apologies for that. But if you have read this, it's basically saying the same thing that I just mentioned, that this whole ship system is work in progress, and these are the steps for the current implementation, which is very much going to change. Cool. So next tutorial panel talks about the swarm a little bit, especially about keeping a ship around for an undefended station and using the time panel to zoom ahead. The last thing then to talk about is this docking, which is another area where things are falling over a little bit. Everything to do with the ships is broken in this build. So let's talk a little bit about that once we zoom ahead. A ship has returned. There's no message about that, so I realize that we need to expose the fact that a ship has returned. But what we see now is that there is this kind of double icon on the station, which is less than ideal because you can't actually select the station without being really finicky. But you can select the station using this outliner panel in the top left-hand corner. So station will select station, ships will select ships. Hopefully that's clear. And then planets, you can also select the planets and kind of see where they are in your space, which doesn't actually mean anything right now. Okay, so hit the station, and then I will go into prox mode and see what's going on. I'll click on the ship to select the ship and then go to the docking tab, which I believe if we go to the tutorial, it will tell us what to do. So go to the command panel, dock, transfer materials, recharge batteries, and recharge jump drives. Alright, so this is another thing that's not very well surfaced at the moment, but if your ship is docked to the station and you have the right amount of storage for a material, and this unload button is checked, then your ship will be in the background automatically unloading its cargo to the station. It does take a while, but you can see there that I'm slowly ticking down from 8 to 7, and if I zoom ahead a little bit, 6, 5, 4. So this ship is now transferring its algae to the station. The problem is that we're very close to the max capacity of the storage, so I might want to go ahead and build a bio storage, which I can't afford because I'm out of metal, so I might want to send a ship to get some metal, but because I have free build enabled, I can afford it, so I'll just pop it in there. And now I should be able to store the materials that the ship is delivering. Cool, the swarm's going to come in less than a minute, so I'll hurry up with all of this. Once that ship is done unloading, I might want to undock it to then free up the dock for the next ship. If you have multiple ships waiting you'll see them in the little outliner panel in the top left. So let's go ahead and zoom through this next swarm. I'm going to give myself... Oh, I have a missile launcher, great. Let's just chuck a couple of missiles over there. Now, because I have a ship docked to the station, this ship should also help me against these last few stragglers. There we go. No problem. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going to zoom ahead until my next ship is back. Oh wait, no, I'm not going to do that because it's going to take way too long for that to happen. Oh, it's all the way over there. Yeah, it's not going to make it back in time. Never mind. Oh, we've got another swarm. This one's probably going to be a little bigger. Yeah, that's okay. I can take it. I am curious what you think about the way that the missile targeting works. Essentially what it's doing is every frame calculating the most dense regions of the swarm and then updating the missile's targeting. But what I really don't like about it right now is that there's this kind of jittery motion because there's so many of the targets that the densest cluster is updating quite a lot. And so I'm trying to think about different ways to get around that, where the missiles still work by targeting dense areas, but they don't jump around so much. That's one small thing I'd like to improve. This orange circle that comes up is just a sort of danger radius, basically saying you've let the swarm get too close. Great. If the swarm gets too close for too long, then the ship will jump away because its madness will go up. But that's not super important for this current version of the test. I'm currently, as we speak, getting reports that the ships are not undocking. And so I want to see if... Interesting. Okay. So the ship does undock for me. Alright, so it looks like for me I can undock the ship and then free up that docking slot for the next ship. But what I can't do, and this is 100% broken, is reassign this ship. So once it's been sent out and come back, it's just kind of locked, which is not ideal. At this point, I would suggest going to the debug menu and then enabling free build if you want to continue playing through. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can solve this issue before the end of the playtest, because it would be nice to fix this completely broken thing. But if not, I think, as I've said, this ship system needs a complete overhaul, so if you are stuck, don't worry too much about it at this point. Okay, the last thing that I want to mention is that in the top right of the screen there is this escape panel, and this is ultimately the purpose of your run. You need to escape, and your ships are not ready to do that yet. You can. I can jump my ship out. In fact, I'll show you that I can jump my ship out. I can jump the ship out. It's gone. It's no longer accessible, and I'll have it next mission. The problem is that because I jumped it out when it's unstable, there's going to be a lot of systems damage, and so if you do that too many times, the ship degrades too much, and then you lose the game, the big campaign game. So ideally, I would want to jump these ships out when they're charged to 90% or more. And the way that you do that is by choosing a ship and then docking it and then charging its jump coils. As you can see, though, that has a rather high power drain, so you do need a pretty good energy industry to be able to do that. Or I can charge it at 1.6 megawatts, but that's going to take a long time. So for the purposes of this test, let me go to the station and build a couple of power thingies. I'm just going to build these reactors. There we go. Now I'm charging this ship up The other thing that I might want to do is charge multiple ships at once. So if I'm going to do that, then I need a different type of module, which is in the crew section, dock. And now I should be able to dock multiple ships, except this one is traveling. So it's not going to do, I'm not going to be able to dock it. Interesting. Okay, so I can't dock that ship because it's traveling, but I can at least charge this ship, which is docked, and I have a really high power capacity, and it's now at 15%. Great. So if I go to my escape tab and zoom ahead a little bit while this ship charges up, ooh, I probably have to fight the swarm, don't I? Because it's going to be a big one. Yep. Oh, okay. I need some stuff. Need some more stuff. Let's go to build. Let's go to defend and add a couple of cannons. Okay, hopefully that's enough. Then I will also add a shield because that might be useful right at the end. Let's chuck some. It's very clicky, very clunky UI. Okay, so I'll chuck some missiles at the swarm. Oh, this is a problem. We might have to end the run because that's gonna hit the station and then we die. Okay. That's annoying. Oh, I closed that window, but I will say everything from this point onwards, even though everything before this point was a little buggy, everything from this point onwards is super not intended for the playtest. It's just here for like extra information and for you to see where the direction is going, but it's not at all in place or testable. There's lots of bugs and no guarantees made at all. Also, this screen is completely broken. You can't, there's stuff that doesn't work on the screen. But the idea is that you'll choose where you're going next, and then you'll set your orders. You have these crew points to spend, which mean the things that the crew does during the journey. So you can either spend that time researching new stuff, repairing your ship, or resting your crew. Then you jump out. There we go. All that's coming up next. Confirm and jump, and we'll be back at... Oh, because I need to lock that destination in. And here we are. New planet, new mission, new solar system. Just to restate, if you've reached this point where you have other materials in your star system, that's beyond the scope of this playtest, and you're welcome to click around and see what happens, but that's not necessarily the point of this initial round of playtesting. Let's go ahead and deploy around a planet, confirm. Oh yeah, this is the old planet material, so very much not fit for public consumption. Great, so we basically come to the end of the initial playtesting. The final thing that I'll mention, and I know I've said that a couple of times, is that there are a few things on this right-hand side that haven't even been touched upon in this initial playtest, but I will quickly just talk about them. The exposure shows you this little overlay of things that are exposed to the star or not. So that's going to be really important when you make solar panels and when you make radiators. The rule of thumb is that solar panels need to be exposed to the star to work, and radiators work best when they are not exposed to the star. So if I put the solar panel, let's say I put one solar panel there and then one solar panel there, this one over here is not going to be as efficient because it's receiving a lot less starlight. So it's receiving 3 megawatts from this solar panel and just 300 kilowatts from this panel. On the flip side, if I build radiators, if those radiators are exposed to a bunch of light, they're going to be absorbing a little bit of heat as well. So this radiator's net gain is 300 kilowatts. It's sort of arbitrary at this point of heat energy, which is not good because that means that it's bringing heat into the station. And so in this case, because this planet is really close to this station is really close to the star, I really want to make sure that my radiators, when I build them, are in shadow. So this radiator should be a little bit more efficient, slightly less energy absorbed. But ultimately, this is where things like the thermal shielding come in, because you'd probably want to build a giant shield and then put all of your radiators behind it. In this case, I've just messed up the solar panels, but I've also now given the radiators a little bit of... Oh, I actually haven't. Yeah, I'd probably want to do something like get rid of that solar panel and put the radiators there instead. There we go. Now that radiator is radiating heat away from the station. Great. So again, this is not necessarily something that was super important for this initial playtest, but I do want to expose it, just so that you have the context of where this is all going. So that's the exposure map. Then there's the energy map, which shows you how well things are doing in the station, both in terms of draw and production. Hopefully straightforward enough. It does get quite overwhelming when you're zoomed out, and so I'm trying to figure out the best way to make this both readable and intuitive. And then the heat map is where things are getting hot, which also relates to exposure, but also sort of internal generation. So this combustion module, which creates power by burning stuff, gets really hot. And so typically you'll see those around radiators. It's not plugged in at the moment, but the directionality of this, the intention is that modules which are too hot will degrade over time and will also increase the crew madness of any ships that are docked to the station. So obviously, for many reasons, you'll want to keep your station pretty cool. And that's going to be a challenge. Okay. Now that we've talked about all the overlays, I will finally just talk about... Will I talk about the sandbox? No, I think that's straightforward enough. You can figure it out. There's a little bit of overlays that you can add to see some dev stuff, but I won't talk about them in this video because it's already been way too long. And so, if you have reached this point, thank you for bearing through with me. This, like I said, I'm a bit under the weather at the moment, and so not at the top of my game. I apologize for that. But if you have stuck through to the end, thank you very much. I hope this has been a little bit enlightening. Thank you again for playtesting at this early stage. I acknowledge that it is very buggy, but genuinely getting feedback at this stage is what is going to help this game become the best version of itself. And I really appreciate all the feedback. And I look forward to hearing more of your thoughts. All right, that's it for now. I'll catch up about the rest of the playtest on Discord. Cheers for now. Take care.